各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。喺新冠疫情影響之下，長者們好明顯就成為咗最高危嘅群體。而對於嗰啲有長者家屬住喺護理設施嘅家庭嚟講，不斷聽到有護老院爆發疫情嘅消息，就更加令到佢哋感到非常之擔憂同埋恐懼。喺卑詩省，隨住第二波疫情來勢洶洶，令到低陸平原地區多間嘅護老設施接連失守。有確診長者嘅家屬就質疑護老院嘅防疫以及隔離措施是否到位，並且認為喺管理上缺乏透明度。究竟點解有部分嘅護老院會成為咗高風險爆發疫情嘅地方呢？家屬又採取咗啲乜嘢措施嚟到爭取長者嘅權益啦？一場疫情係咪帶出咗我哋嘅長者護理系統存在住根本嘅不足呢？Rwanda 嘅媽媽喺2019年10月入住呢間位於溫哥華 Abutis 護老院，每個星期佢都會同家人一齊去探望母親。最初 Rwanda 好慶幸母親能夠喺一個安全嘅環境得到良好嘅照顧，但係隨住疫情爆發，探訪受到限制，佢開始對母親嘅處境感到擔憂。直到去年嘅11月，佢發現同佢母親同房嘅院友確診感染咗新冠肺炎。
Which I wasn't informed about. I just was told in a group email that someone had tested positive, and then I called and I found out it was her roommate, and so I asked if she had been tested. No one seemed to know. And so I was, wondering, well, what's going on? Like, why doesn't anyone know what's happening? And someone also told me that it took a while to separate them, which I thought was strange. I wasn't that anxious at that point because, people do get sick, and I thought, okay, well, as long as she's going to get care, then hopefully she could maybe come through this, right? But what really started to worry me is what I saw, the behavior at the home.
Rwanda 話一開始佢被拒絕同母親通話，令佢更加費解嘅係，當佢想了解更多情況嘅時候，對方嘅態度非常不友善。冇幾耐之後，母親嘅新冠肺炎症狀出現，並且情況越嚟越嚴重。
Long-term care homes don't have IVs, so this is one of the biggest issues as well, is that people get very dehydrated, and that can easily lead to death, because when you're sick with COVID and you're not hydrated and you're getting malnourished, that's one of the reasons why the elderly die. So I started, trying to advocate and say, please, can you give my mother more fluids? Is there anything you can do? Maybe give her an electrolyte beverage. And they didn't even want to give her lemon and water or anything like that.
有一日 ，Rwanda 接到電話，得知母親唔再飲水進食，並且好明顯已經處於脫水狀態。之後佢就冇辦法同護老院以及母親取得聯絡。情急之下，佢同家人決定報警求助急救中心。
Then I get a call from a nurse, and she found the time to call me then. And she said, "Why did you call the paramedic? You shouldn't have done that." She turned him away.
Rwanda 最終爭取到醫生幫助，由醫生授權將佢嘅母親送往醫院救治。令佢憤怒嘅係喺送院之前，該名護士向佢發火，並且2度掛斷佢嘅電話，唔俾佢同母親通話。
She told me not to call there anymore. She said I should only just show up and wave through the window. She said, that I have misconceptions about the quality of care there. And I was thinking, what is going on here? Why is she treating me this way?
當時急症醫生診斷 Rwanda 嘅母親因為脫水而導致腎臟勞損，並且又患有肺炎。而喺佢返回護老院由護士繼續照顧之後，問題並冇得到改善。該名護士喺冇跟從醫生嘅指示之下，將 Rwanda 母親嘅抗生素以及供氧氣停咗，並且再次掛斷佢嘅電話。
So at that point, I realized, okay, too many things have gone wrong now, and this is dangerous. My mom is not safe there. So I called the patient care quality office and I said I need to make a formal complaint, and then I was told also to call licensing.
令佢估唔到嘅係，事情仲遠遠未結束。
The center received all my notes from the patient care quality office, and basically that same day later on, my mother was in tears on FaceTime with me, saying, "What did I do wrong?" Because they hate me here. And so I thought, oh no, this must be because they're angry at me because they received all these notes that I had given to the patient care quality office, because that's how it works. And I told my mom, no, it's not you, it's me. It's because I've put in a formal complaint, and that's maybe why you're getting treated worse.
我哋就該護老院新冠疫情爆發以及有護士被投訴失職一事，向該護老院所屬公司查詢。收到嘅書面回應表示 ，Abutis 護老院喺去年嘅11月13號爆發新冠疫情，合共有64位院友以及20位員工確診，其中11位院友不幸離世。不過，溫哥華沿岸衛生局已經喺上個月嘅20號確認院內嘅疫情已經結束。而即使院內疫情結束，護老院仍然保持警惕，竭盡所能確保院友以及員工健康安全，預防疫情再次傳播。而對於有護士涉嫌失職嘅投訴，該公司表示，如果有家屬對院內嘅管理有疑慮，公司將會遵循內部投訴調查流程，並且向溫哥華沿岸衛生局報告該事件，再由衛生局進行調查，並且向家屬作出適當嘅回應。幸好 Rwanda 嘅母親現時已經從新冠肺炎康復過嚟。
如果我將件事暴露出嚟，向傳媒接受傳媒嘅訪問啊，通知傳媒或者通知衞生廳長嘅時候，會唔會令到佢媽媽係即係會冇咁好嘅對待呢？
卑斯自由黨省議員屈傑冰 Teresa Watt 所屬選區嘅一位選民嘅母親，居住喺列治文 Mineral 護老院內。隨住院內嘅新冠疫情爆發，佢嘅母親亦都不幸感染該病毒。屈傑冰話：當佢收到呢一封求助信件嘅時候，佢非常震驚。
咁啱呢，同佢媽媽一齊住喺同一個200平方尺嘅房間嘅另一位長者個女呢，就啱撞到佢，佢探佢嘅時候就話俾佢聽：我媽媽呢係已經經過測試咧，發覺咧就係染咗新冠病毒，咁佢就好緊張啦。咁佢好緊張咧，就即刻即係向嗰個安老院諮詢啦。咁喺諮詢之下咧，佢哋至承認話係同佢嘅媽媽同住嗰個院友咧，就係檢測到係呈陽性。咁佢跟住就要追問，咁如果係佢同住係呈陽性嘅，咁佢哋係咪應該分隔開咧？咁但係得嚟咧，佢係得唔到一啲合理嘅答覆。唯一咧，佢就係話中間咧就喺兩張床中間咧一個好似一塊布一個窗簾布將佢哋隔開。咁當然向我求助呢位女士咧就好擔心啦。咁但係咧就好不幸咧，就到幾日之後咧，1月4號咧，佢媽媽咧就真係咧就唔好嘅消息嚟咗，就染咗新冠病毒啦。
屈傑冰話：該名選區嘅居民話俾佢知，母親嘅健康狀況變差，以前仲可以接聽手機同佢通話，但係現時就冇辦法做到，令佢非常擔心。更加沮喪嘅係，院方拒絕俾佢從窗戶外面探望母親。而屈傑冰就決定去信省衛生廳長，希望敦促當局徹查該事件。而溫哥華沿岸衛生局喺上個月嘅13號喺其網站為 Mineral 護老院設立網頁，回答公眾提出嘅問題。不過屈傑冰話答覆太過籠統，而且未有提出具體嘅措施。
譬如好似佢哋提到話點解兩個老人家其中一個發現陽性仲係住喺一齊咧？咁佢哋嘅答案就話一般嚟講咧，當一個同室嘅兩個人咧，同一個房嘅兩位長者，如果一個染咗咧，另一個染咗嘅機會係好高嘅。咁但係問題就係你唔可以有咁嘅假設咧，就唔去做一啲具體嘅措施嚟到去防止另一位都染病，所以作為一個家人呢，係非常之擔心嘅。
屈傑冰話一直未有收到當局嘅回覆，不過佢表示，該名居民向佢求助嘅初衷，亦都係希望能夠阻止 Mineral 護老院嘅疫情發展。
咁佢哋絕對 係希望衛生廳長可以去徹底咁樣去要求溫哥華沿岸衛生局同埋 Mineral 嘅安老院，佢哋俾一個詳盡嘅報告，究竟做錯咗乜嘢嘢？其實做錯咗係只要可以更正咧，以後對啲長者咧保障佢哋嘅安全，呢個係好重要。向我求助呢位選民，其實佢都係有一個宏觀嘅。佢話：我唔想發生喺我媽媽身上，係發生喺其他人身上。
省府早前公布一份就新冠疫情對長期護理設施影響嘅獨立調查報告，咁係早前委託 Ernst & Young 安永公司協助進行探訪與審查背景資料，咁並且就長期護理中心就可改進嘅地方提出更完善嘅建議。呢一份報告喺2020年10月下旬提交衛生廳審議，並且立即落實進展檢討嘅內容。而隨住省內多間護老院疫情嚴重爆發，卑詩長者倡導專員 Isobel McKenzie 亦都喺較早前宣布，將會對新冠疫情爆發期間護老院死亡事件進行審查。
We're going to want to, what do we want to know about each care home? How big it is, how many rooms, how many rooms were single occupancy, what was the staffing level, what was the funded staffing level, is there paid sick leave, what was the screening process for staff, what was the screening process for visitors, what was the testing process once the outbreak was declared.
唔單止係咁 ，Isobel 話佢哋仲將會調查研究低陸平原地區未有爆發疫情嘅護老院，咁了解是否有任何有效嘅措施可以參考借鑑，咁而應對未來潛在嘅流行病爆發。佢同時亦都指出，新冠疫情喺過去近1年嘅時間，對於長者嘅身心健康造成好大影響，尤其係居住喺疫情爆發嘅護老院內嘅長者。
Some of them have literally not seen some family members by the time we're through this for over a year. Others have seen some of their family members, but have not been able to have the kind of connection they had before. The restriction on activities within the care home, the measures that have been taken to try and keep social or physical distance between residents, that will all have had an impact. And then for those who live in a care home that experienced an outbreak, that's a fairly profound impact. That may have seen residents isolated in their rooms for up to 2 weeks, sometimes more. It may have seen the elimination of all group activities within the care home.
對於現時有家屬對親人喺護老院嘅情況感到擔憂 ，Isobel 就鼓勵佢哋能夠勇敢發聲。不過佢建議，首先都係應該同護老院溝通。溝通無效嘅話，就可以同所屬嘅衛生當局聯絡，或者聯絡卑詩病人護理質素審查委員會。
I think that the feedback we hear from people helps us build a better system. So it is important to take the time to voice your concerns if you're a family member to the health authority. And it may or may not improve things for your loved one, but it might possibly improve things down the road for somebody else's loved one.
而對於多間護老院新冠疫情爆發嘅調查報告，預計會喺未來嘅幾個月內公佈。喺下節返嚟，我哋會繼續了解長者家屬對於護老院嘅感受以及睇法，並且會同卑詩長者倡導專員傾一傾保護長者對抗疫情嘅方向。歡迎返嚟節目時間。疫情之下，長者嘅身體健康受到威脅之外，心理上亦都受到好大嘅衝擊。一班嘅義工們群策群力，咁同護老院配合，用唔同嘅方式為長者送上心靈嘅慰藉。不過，由於當局對於護老院嘅探視規定加以限制，咁令到家屬好多時冇辦法多次探視親人，對於長者嘅心理健康造成咗好大嘅影響。要從身體以及心靈兩方面嚟到保護長者，就係當局現正面臨嘅嚴峻考驗啦。
This is her daughter. Is there another time that I can call?
Rwanda 現時打電話去護老院都會使用其他電話號碼打去，佢話咁樣先至有可能被接聽，因為佢覺得 Abiltis 護老院內該名護士有意阻撓。
And so I got a hold of another nurse, and the nurse says, you have to report this to management because this is happening. She says, I've witnessed this mistreatment, and denial of, people not being able to speak to their loved ones. And that is terrible. And I talked about this with management, and I said that there was a particular nurse who had been very aggressive with me and has been aggressive with my mother, but they didn't want to believe it.
而溫哥華沿岸衛生局病人護理質素辦公室嘅回覆就令佢非常失望。
It just basically shows me that none of the things that I said happened, they took seriously. They had an answer for everything. They said that everything was done properly, everyone followed protocol, that it was, if there was any issues with my mother and a staff member, that it was a personality difference. I've brought up these concerns with licensing as well, and it just seems like there's no answer to it. But they were written up for non-compliance over two things, and that was the antibiotics being taken off, and as well as their staffing practices.
Rowanda 話：該院內另一名唔願意透露姓名嘅護士話俾佢知，實際上佢哋人手嚴重不足，並且受到管理人員惡劣對待，令到院內嘅長者亦都冇辦法得到良好嘅照料。
There just seems to be a lot of issues, and I also wondered, they had a long time to prepare for this second wave that everyone was talking about. And yet, when it happened, they were understaffed. The nurses were working double shifts and complaining of this not getting hazard pay and, feeling resentful. And when they would get sick, then there was no one else to fill in. So it really makes me wonder, what's going on here? How is the money being spent? Why is there not enough staff for all these residents?
對此，卑斯長者倡導專員 Isabel McKenzie 表示，當局需要喺護老院開支方面提高透明度以及問責性。
So to be fair to the government, they have been quite preoccupied, rightly so, for the past year with this COVID. And we will see if we can turn our attention back to transparency and accountability once we're through this pandemic.
而目前仲難以斷定多間護老院內爆發疫情係咪同護理水平有關。佢將會喺今次嘅審查之中作進一步了解。
I think that there are, without a doubt, always improvements we can make. And I think what COVID has done has shown us why we need to make those improvements, why we need this stronger, more cohesive system of looking after our seniors in long-term care.
收到選區居民就護老院問題求助嘅自由黨省議員屈潔冰 Teresa Ward， 佢本身嘅父母亦都係居住喺本地另一間護老院內。喺新冠疫情期間，佢嘅父親不幸離世，但係就並非因為感染新冠病毒。佢表示慶幸父母所入住嘅護老院一直提供非常良好嘅照顧。不過喺疫情影響之下，由於護老院嘅探訪規定受到限制，佢難以好似過去咁多次探望，或者係親手煮食物帶去。咁樣對於年長嘅父親嘅心情造成咗好大嘅影響。
咁我覺得我爸爸咧都係因為新冠疫情而係即係離開呢個世界，就係因為咧佢感覺上點解好似個女好似遺棄咗佢咧？佢係好難明白係我哋唔可以去，因為老人家我爸爸離去嘅時候98歲啦。佢以前係好關心新聞，但係眼又唔係咁好啊，已經開始係冇乜留意新聞。佢可能感覺到，連我唯一喺個世上，因為我係只係其中一個女啦，冇其他嘅兄弟姊妹，都唔嚟照顧我，亦都覺得生存下去冇乜意思。衞生當局應該要考慮要改一改嗰個探訪嘅條例，係咪真係一定要一個星期一次呢？同埋係咪只係可以規定一個人呢？
對此 ，Isabel 亦都認為當局應該作出適當嘅調整，加以改善。
I do believe we could have done a better job around managing the visitation policy. I think we could have applied more imagination and ingenuity to how to connect some of these families in a more meaningful yet safe way. realizing that, the goal was to reduce as much as possible the number of different people coming into a care home.
不過佢就表示，目前當局亦都非常明確，喺護老院長者接種完第2劑疫苗之前，探視規定唔會改變。而屈潔冰就希望當局能夠更多關注長者嘅精神健康問題。事實上喺疫情期間，長者嘅心理健康亦都係好多義工團體非常關心嘅問題。受到探訪限制，好多義工都冇辦法好似疫情之前一樣親自探訪長者。鄭美蓮 Fanny 就係其中之一。Fanny 自2017年開始喺聖約瑟醫院進行義工服務，而近年其中一個義工項目就係用廣東話向院友讀出當日嘅新聞。而受到疫情影響，起初探訪不得不暫停，直到5月先至轉為利用視像嘅方式繼續為長者報導新聞。
咁佢哋就問我可唔可以試下用 Zoom 呢個形式喺個大廳嗰處個大電視，咁佢會見到我，我又會見到佢，然後跟住我就即係好似以前咁樣拿住份報紙同佢哋即係讀啲新聞俾佢哋聽啊啲咁樣。
而相比起每日嘅新聞，其實該院嘅長者更加有興趣同佢閒話家常。Fanny 話能夠花時間陪伴佢哋，非常開心滿足。
我當咗佢哋好似係我自己屋企人咁樣。即係如果我翻到屋企同我爸爸媽媽、爺爺嫲嫲傾偈嘅時候，我會同佢哋講啲乜嘢啊？總之係比較係普通家常，即係傾偈嘅嘢。即係我覺得啲老人家同你傾偈，好多時佢都中意講翻以前嘅嘢，咁係都好嘅。咁有時都喺佢哋嗰方面都學識好多嘢，有時教我煮餸啊啲咁，所以都好開心㗎。好開心咁半個鐘頭。我做完之後，有時啲rehab assistant 咧都或者啲 nurse 都會反映俾我聽。有一次反映俾我聽，佢話：哎呀，我都唔即係見到班公公婆婆精神好多喎，即係喺嗰個讀報紙嗰個時間，即係起碼係有機會俾佢哋講嘢啦。
Fanny 話：有啲長者並唔清楚究竟發生咗乜嘢事，只係發現見唔到其他人，精神狀態必然受到影響，所以佢亦都會通過讀報紙嘅時間關心以及鼓勵佢哋。
問候關心多少少啊，佢哋會感覺到嘅，起碼即係都覺得係有人仲係關心，唔係話哎呀抌低晒去佢哋屋企人又見唔到得咁多，咁俾佢哋一個感覺係有好多人係好關心佢哋嘅。
And to make it a little easier for Fanny too, because she wasn't as familiar with Zoom, is we did a trial run with it. Now I have to say none of these virtual programs are really possible without the incredible, very, very hard work of the staff that are working in long-term care.
聖約瑟醫院義工資源負責人 Mary Gallup 話：喺去年疫情爆發初期，院內多個義工項目都迫不得已要暫停。不過幾個月之後，就逐步通過新嘅形式，再一次為長者帶嚟服務。
But we all were trying to reach out, especially with long-term care, and realizing the severe impact this was going to have on our elders and going forward in terms of the isolation, and especially those with cognitive challenge, and how to support families and how to do things so the families feel that their loved ones are supported too. So important. So we, put our heads together and try to be as creative as possible. And we had a couple folks that reached out and say, how can we help too?
Mary 話：好多義工同院內嘅長者早已經建立咗深厚嘅感情。
And so there was so much concern when the lockdown initially happened, and especially, for the mental health and for the support of these residents. And they just the volunteers so much wanted to bring some joy and back and lift spirits and keep our elders smiling. And so there are so many offers in creative ways in how they could do this with preparation on the back end. It made more sense when we could bring them back because the elders knew them, and just having that connection from the outside with a familiar face, somebody that they had laughed with and shared with, it was just so amazing and supportive for them. And as well for the volunteers, because the volunteers want to reach out and help and give and care in some way. So it's a really kind of reciprocal relationship there.
而除咗視像嘅模式之外，有義工仲創立咗為長者製作賀卡嘅項目。
So what it's built up to is basically they have reached out to university, college students, high school students. They have a website they've set up, and people send in their artwork for. In the springtime, it was mainly just like how, lifting spirits and looking at the lovely weather and drawing artwork and sending cards to the elderly. They laminate each and every card because of infection control protocols, because we can't just send paper cards in now. Everything has to be able to be wiped down. And it's just, it's fantastic, the efforts that they've contributed and the traction that they've gained. Yeah, I mean, the volunteers have been absolutely amazing.
即使 Arbutus 護老院嘅疫情警報已經解除，但係 Rwanda 母親嘅身體狀況仍然係康復之中。對於佢嚟講，事情仲遠遠未結束。佢已經向卑斯病人護理質素審查委員會投訴。
And I really feel terrible for anyone who has to go through this right now. Because it's a horrible feeling to feel like you're doing the wrong thing trying to help a family member, and being fearful that by advocating for them that somehow they're going to get treated worse.
而佢目前亦已經申請為母親轉院。
Because after everything that happened there, I don't see how we can have any kind of trust, and my mother's very unhappy to this day, and she says, I don't know if I can last much longer here. So I'm just trying to support her at this point and work with the different government offices and see what can be done about what all these things that happened, basically.
好啦，今集嘅節目時間又夠啦。如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。如果觀眾想重溫翻今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站，點擊節目重溫一欄。下星期啦，由於係農曆新年期間會有節目調動嘅關係，所以下星期嘅26分鐘見證實錄將會暫停一次，敬請大家留意。再會。